I'm Beth Guckenberger, and this is the Reckless Faith Podcast. Hey, I'm here today with my friend Rob Hall.
Hey, Beth, good to be with you again today. Day 3 of this journey, this Reckless Faith journey, 40-day journey. The first 2 days have been really amazing. I love the action steps, practical, easy to do, but really meaningful. So really excited to jump in today, which is a burr in my saddle. Now, I've heard this story, right? I've heard kind of theoretically what a burr in the saddle meant as you talked about it, but you actually had a horseback ride after you were talking about a burr in a saddle with a horse that had a burr in its saddle.
Yeah. I'd been talking about the story that I record in this day 3, about the hamburgers that we found kids hiding under their mattresses in an orphanage, and the way that impacted and spurred us on towards the actions that we took in our life. 10 years later, I was on a horseback ride, maybe even 12 years later, I was on a horseback ride with a bunch of my kids in Mexico. We were on one of those trail horses where all the horses do the same thing all day long. You don't have to know even very much about equestrian life in order to take one of these trail rides. And I was glad I could see I was last in line. I could see all the kids in front of me. They looked safe and their horses looked calm and slow, but my horse was crazy. It was bouncing around, agitated, fidgeting. It wasn't settled. It kept making strange, not really horse noises. And at first I was laughing. I had made a comment when we were filling out the forms that I had had some experience riding, and I thought that they were playing a joke on me by giving me like this complicated horse. Finally, like 15 minutes into it, I was feeling kind of sick to my stomach. I was really anxious, and I was like, I can't believe I paid people to do this for fun today. This is not very fun to me. And I yelled up to my guide, "Hey, what do you think's going on with my horse? I don't think she's okay." And the horse turned around, the guide turned around and was just watching us for a few minutes. And she looked at her watch, and then she was watching us for a few minutes. And then she yelled back to me, "Hey, it looks to me like she's probably got a little something under her saddle, but we've been out here long enough. If you ignore her, if you just can endure it for a few more minutes, whatever's bothering her, it'll get kind of numb where it's rubbing on her, and she'll settle down. Just give her a few more minutes." And so a few minutes later, that's exactly what happened. Whatever it was that had been rubbing underneath her saddle had rubbed itself numb, and she settled down, and then she looked like all the rest of the horses the rest of our ride. And I kept thinking about in that drive, that ride, like, wow, this is what happens when we ignore the burrs that God puts on our saddle. After a while, whatever it was, we get kind of numb to it. And then we settle down, and the best view we got the rest of our life is the rear end of the horse in front of us. Like, is there something to being responsive to that thing that makes us uncomfortable?
Yeah, what a perfect picture that God creates these defining moments that rub against us like a burr under that saddle. If we ignore them, they become numb and go away. And I know that that's such a key in a lot of the books that you write, a lot of the talks that you give, is this idea of this, we got to respond to a defining moment.
Mm-hmm. And just even the world tells you, like, settle down, like stop. It's too much. It's too big. It's too hard. And I think, my point from this day that was just recording, like, it's okay. It's okay to be and to ask and to want and to see and to lean towards and to expect more than what you are currently experiencing in your life. And even if that's not what all the rest of the horses look like, don't be afraid of the burr that God put under your saddle.
Yeah, Joshua 1:9 is the verse that you picked for day 3. Most of our folks might already know that, but I think it's a perfect example about being courageous.
Yeah, not being afraid and understanding that the Lord is with you literally wherever you go. So my reckless faith ended up taking me across the border, but that's not what everybody's reckless faith is going to do. Their reckless faith might cause them to cross the street, or to go into the home of a neighbor, or it might cause them to cross a courtroom or a classroom or whatever. Like, we can be confident that whatever it is that God is calling you towards, that He'll be with you wherever you go.
Yeah. So today's action step for day 3 of Burr in My Saddle: sketch a quick timeline of your life. Record the dates and places God used as trajectory-changing moments in your life. Pray and thank Him for how He moves us. talk a little bit about this action step when you took it.
Yeah, so if you think about what we've been doing since day one, like day one was being still, and day two was listening in that stillness for where God might be calling you. Day three is just this like last little piece of that kind of 3-step process of like, what kind of experiences have I had to date that God has used to shift where it is that I was going? And for us that day, when we saw those kids hiding those hamburgers under the mattress, it was like, we could just say forevermore that we saw this, or we could do something about what we saw. And so I think about the readers. They may have relationships that they form. They may have had experiences. They may have had, various chapters and moments in their life that are catalysts to an overarching, overriding call and story that God's writing for them. And just being mindful of what that story looks like will help us have confidence for the reckless faith steps that are still to come.
Yeah. Well, 3 days in, I'm already pretty energized by all of this stuff. Hopefully, we trust that this bonus material is providing some great motivation and encouragement for the folks who've purchased the book. If you have Reckless Faith, a 40-day journey to saying yes, we hope the podcast provides you with that encouragement, and that you can use that encouragement to have great conversations with God and with other people. If you're here, if you're listening to this podcast and haven't yet gotten a copy, you can find it on Amazon, or for the book and other resources, you can visit backtoback.org/40 days. That's back, the number 2, back.org/40 days.
I just want to thank you for being on this journey towards a more reckless faith. And until next time.